So here's Grandma Baldwin gonna tell another story. So we asked everybody what stories you want to hear, and I think they're getting over then said stories from when we were young. So Grandma has a story about Ligia and Joe. She's gonna tell the story.
Okay, when we lived in the house in Casper, Wyoming, on Kaufman Avenue, we lived across the street from a park, and so Ligia was a good big sister. She took care of the girls you kids all the time, and helped me with you kids. But when she during the summer, Joe would follow her around. He was almost 3, and he would follow her around, and everything she did, he'd try to do. If she was watching TV, he'd sit like she did. He'd hold his arms like he watched her really close. And so one time, she used to sew a lot for the girls and herself, and she was making a dress, and so she had the material all laid out on the floor, and she had the TV on, and it had her soap operas on, because she liked to watch those in the summertime. And so Joe was watching, and he saw that she had the tape measure around her neck. So he ran to my machine and got the tape measure. And then he got my pin. He saw that she put pins in her mouth. So he ran to my pin cushion and got some pins out. And he had it in his mouth like she did. And he's just watching her, everything she did. And she'd take a pin out and she'd put it in the material. So he'd take a pin out and he'd stick it in the material. And he'd take it, stick it in the material. It was so funny. It was just like and then when Dad came home, he would, he'd put on Grandpa's boots that he wore to the oil fields, because that's when Grandpa was working in the oil fields. Anyway, he wore these big boots, and they came clear up to his knees. Could hardly walk in them. And then he'd get in there, and like if I'd say, will you fix this radio or whatever it was, and John would be looking at it, and pretty soon Joseph's head would be right there in front of John's. And he'd be trying to look at everything that John was seeing. It was just, he'd always and I could never get him to sleep at night. I discovered when he was about 6 months old that if I tickled and tickled and tickled him, he slept much better, because he'd be worn out from laughing. And then he'd go to bed real easy. And so that's how I used to get him to go to bed, because he was so determined to do everything that Ligia or John did. It was just funny watching him when he was about 3 years old. And then Ligia liked to take the girls. Well, she took Joe and Benjamin and Raylene and Gayleen over to the park and across the street, and they had little wading pools about 2 feet deep. Wasn't even 2 feet deep. Went from 6 inches up to 2 feet. Let's put it that way, and or down to 2 feet deep. But anyway, it was a little wading pool for the kids, and so she'd go over there, and she decided that she used to say that her skin she didn't like her skin because it was different from ours. It was tan. And I say, well, that's what the Lord gave you. And but then when she became a teenager, she decided, or later on in her teen years, she decided she needed to tan like the girls. So she put on her swimsuit, and she would take the kids over to the wading pool. And she'd lay there and get a suntan and just watch the kids play in the water and everything. And pretty soon there'd be Joe. He'd be laying down by her watching it, and he burned real easy though. But anyway, they all did. But anyway, she used to go get her tan, and it was funny how she changed from not wanting to be in the sun to wanting to be in the sun, and she just became so Americanized that way, I guess. And And so that's how it was with Ligia. She made dresses for you, the girls. She made little suits for Ben and Joe, and she was always doing things for you kids. She just had so much fun with you kids, but she was so far ahead of you that you probably don't remember it as much. But she made so much fun. But that was the thing. So there you go.
Okay.